Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on just the Arrowverse as a whole and crossover talk, which I feel like we haven't talked about in a while, just because, well, there's just been nothing to talk about in regards to crossovers. So yeah, we are around the halfway point roughly, or on average, for most of the DCTV shows in the Arrowverse currently airing on the CW, with some either heading into their back halves or some just approaching that midway point roughly. But usually something that happens at the midpoint of every season with the Arrowverse shows, or at least for the majority of them, is of course the annual crossover. And it is really crazy to think that the last crossover that we had was actually the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. That was ages ago. It's just insane. Some of you might be thinking, wait, you're right. What the hell? That was ages ago. But heading into this season of the Arrowverse, there was one planned crossover that they announced and were talking about every now and then, which was between the two Arrowverse shows that had HBO Max deals for streaming after they finished their seasons. The rest, or before these two, all the shows usually went to Netflix for streaming. But with these two shows, they go to HBO Max. And these two shows are, of course, Batwoman and Superman and Lois. So that was the only planned crossover, which was set up just as COVID was happening. I can't remember when they first talked about it, but it was around that first little period of COVID. So that explains what we'll talk about in a second. Now, of course, that isn't happening anymore, mainly due to COVID, but it also wouldn't be too surprising if, due to the changes that went, through Batwoman, then, there was really no more connective tissue to make that crossover work, organically. I wouldn't surprise me too much if that's why it was passed along fully, along with COVID. I'm sure if they really wanted to make it happen, COVID could have been worked around. But yeah, I think the fact that Batwoman had changed a bit was the final yeah, okay, we'll just move on. But yeah, that was the only publicly announced crossover that was canned due to COVID, but now we know it wasn't. There was another one. Something bigger was going to happen, and now it's being reshaped to still happen in some way this season, but not in the initial, plan that was intended. So as I'm sure most of you are aware of, or at least I hope most of you are aware of, Superman and Lois returns this week after their 2-month break after episode 5 in order for them to catch up on filming due to some COVID-related delays. And also they just have a longer production time. They take almost twice as long to make an episode compared to The Flash. So due to that, they of course have been doing some interviews to promote it. It's hey, it's back, get watching. Now, we knew late last year before the show started airing again for this season that David Ramsey, who of course played Diggle on Arrow, would be directing an episode each of The Flash, Batwoman, Legend of Tomorrow, Supergirl, and of course Superman and Lois, as well as appearing as Diggle in 4 of the shows, and apparently as another type of character that isn't Diggle on Legends. Who knows what that will be, but that's what they said back then. So it's probably someone from a different period in time or something, I'm not too sure. Now, we weren't sure exactly how it was going to play out or anything like that, what the story was, but I think we're all excited to see where it could go. But Entertainment Weekly did this preview interview with the cast of Superman and Lois, and specifically Todd Helbing, who was the showrunner for Superman and Lois, where, he revealed some certain things. So I'm just going to take the little parts out of the Entertainment Weekly thing just because it's easier to just, to translate, or just to show you guys. That's the best way to put it. So just to preface this, David Ramsey is he's directing episode 7, which is going to be a fairly Luthor-heavy episode in regards to his, history and stuff, and explaining some of his motives, which is exciting. So that's where this interview continues. Helbing discussed why he thought Ramsey was the right choice for that pivotal episode. The stuff he directed on Arrow was fantastic, he said. Just getting into the Luthor character and the backstory and really getting into his motivations and why he's doing what he is. I think David, having played John Diggle, could just bring his expertise from the Arrowverse on how to tell those stories. So I thought he'd be a perfect fit for it. And to be honest, I agree with that. One of the things with especially directing TV is just knowing how it works. I think it's a bit different than directing a movie where you have the full creative control over adapting that script and everything like that. I think with TV, it's a bit different. And you'll sometimes see some of the better episodes in a TV show can sometimes be done by people that work on the show, whether they were stunt people, actors, or writers or something like that. Sometimes that's how you get the better episodes of a TV show, is when someone that's been there for a while and knows the show actually handles that episode. In terms of his appearance as Diggle, that comes later in Superman and Lois' season. The last time we saw Diggle, he was getting ready to move his family to Metropolis when he found a bright green object at the site of a meteor crash, which was a nod to the prevailing fan theory he was destined to become Green Lantern John Stewart. As of right now, it's unclear if that will play into Diggle's Superman and Lois visit. So this is one of the things that was being discussed, is whether he was appearing in the episodes that he's directing, because with Supergirl, for example, he is appearing in the episode he's directing for Supergirl. However, that's not the case here. He's going to appear in an episode later in the season. It'll be interesting to see where they decide to show that up. Will they try and line it up where, it airs similar to the episode that he appears in The Flash and Legends, then maybe it's towards the end of the season of Superman and Lois, and then the Supergirl episode isn't too far away. I'm not too sure how they're going to handle it, but they might try and keep them somewhat close just so it seems a tiny bit connected. But in regards to his Superman and Lois appearance, this is what Todd Helbing had to say. Our episode gets into the mentality of where he is in his life based on everything that has happened to him over the last several years. So this is sort of similar to what was said by Eric Wallace, who's the showrunner for The Flash, in regards to Diggle's appearance on The Flash. But I think from memory, Eric Wallace was talking about it's like the repercussions of how he left him on Arrow. So it might be similar to that, but I think it was also going to be relating to where he's been since we last saw him. And I think most of his appearances will deal with the similar things about him helping out due to his experience and dealing with certain things over the beginning of Arrow to right now. But I think it just might depend on a case by case basis and what's going on in that particular episode. Because with Supergirl, what's going on in Supergirl seems like it's going to be different than what's going on in The Flash and on Superman and Lois and probably Batwoman as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But here is where things get interesting, and I don't think this was actually out there. I think this is like the big reveal. This is like the big mic drop moment. Not mic drop moment, but a big just like, oh, okay, this is what they were doing. This is what was meant to be happening. Some of us might have theorized it, but yeah. So as previously reported, Ramsey will reprise the role of Diggle on Supergirl, The Flash, and Batwoman, and he has a mysterious role on DC's Legend of Tomorrow. According to Helbing, Ramsey's on-screen return was initially conceived as a multi-episode arc across the shows. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic squashed those plans. There was like a 5-episode story, Helbing said. It was pretty cool, and then because of availability and shutdowns and delays, it was impossible to make it make sense across the shows. There's still a through line, but it's not as A to B to C as planned. Ours is kind of a little bit of a more one-off, but thematically it still plays. So that's what we were wondering, if that was going to be the case, just because the episode, like the shows were premiering at different times. Like Batwoman was like almost like 2 months ahead of Superman and Lois and The Flash. Then Superman and Lois takes this break. We didn't know when Supergirl was premiering. Legends was premiering later as well. It was going to be hard to see how they would line it up where they were even like these episodes played in even like a general like area of each other, like a month period or something like that, let alone even close to what we'd get with a crossover where all the episodes would play pretty much in the same week, or maybe like a week apart or something like that. So we weren't too sure how it was going to work, but that was the plan. They had it to do that and to play out like that, but now they've restructured it and reconceived it in a different way. Now, I don't know what the storyline's going to be necessarily. I would like to think that maybe it's something about how he's dealing going back to normality, because if you think about Diggle from season 1 of Arrow to season 8, and just everything just got crazier and crazier and crazier, and then all of a sudden it's dropped down. And of course, we don't know what's happened post Meteor and him getting the glowing green object, aka Green Lantern ring. We don't know, has he put it on? Has he been Green Lantern? Will they reference that? I'm assuming they're going to reference it. If not, we might see something with it. My bet for if it was going to be a Green Lantern we're going to see him was on Superman and Lois because of the bigger budget, but they could just siphon budgets from the shows and they could still do it on a show like The Flash if they wanted to. I'm intrigued to see how they go about it. But in regards to like the cancelled crossover that was initially planned but now has changed to be this like one-offs throughout the episode with like a sort of like a shoestring plot line that might connect them every now and then, or in like loose ways. That's what we're going to get now. I would have been interested to see what the overall big crossover would have been if there was no COVID and they could have planned it out properly. I think that would have been really, really cool. Especially just because it would have helped out with like Batwoman because of like the new Ryan Wilder coming in. Obviously, it's Supergirl's final season, so it would have been good for Supergirl to meet up with everyone. And also, it's Superman and Lois's first crossover as an actual show. So it's probably the worst year possible for COVID to happen because there's just missed opportunities. I guess the plus is that maybe it didn't ruin Arrow's final thing. It didn't ruin Crisis. But man, like it makes you think like there's shows that are going and there's characters that it would have helped maybe fold them in a bit more. So I don't know. It feels like this cancelled one is probably a big missed opportunity. It's like one of those what if scenarios. What if this actually got to play out properly? Now, this does lead into the next thing, which is will they revive the idea of this connected story or a connected story in a crossover type setting involving Diggle for the next season? Once like, right now, like COVID's sort of like calming down and, by the time they've started getting to the next season where they would normally film the crossover, it should be much easier to film, if not just back to normal. Could they revive it then? And they would have to do it obviously without Supergirl. So it'd be over the shows of The Flash, Superman, Lois, Batwoman, and Legends. Of course, as I said, no more Supergirl. The only option is that maybe Stargirl's involved. We don't know necessarily what they're doing with Stargirl in regards to its place in the Arrowverse. We know Jay Garrick's appearing on there this season, which is going to be like the first connection. There's rumors that it's moving to Vancouver to film as well for season 3. That's not confirmed. That's just from like Vancouver people from what they're hearing. Obviously, that's a wait and find out in regards to that and whether that actually plays out or not. But yeah, I'd love to see it. If they could do, if they wanted to do another big crossover, I'd like them to just revive this idea, just to have Diggle with all the heroes there. Because it's important to remember in these episodes that Diggle's showing up with, it's just with the cast from those individual shows. Superman's not coming to The Flash. The Flash isn't going to Supergirl. Batwoman's not going to Legends. It's just going to be Diggle that's appearing in all these shows. So it's like a mini crossover, which we've already experienced on The Flash for multiple episodes in the past when Diggle's gone there. So it's not overly different. It just depends, I guess, what Diggle's doing individually. But this once again brings up the final question of the video, and that's the future of the crossovers in the Arrowverse in general. So my thoughts around it is we might get one more big crossover before shows like The Flash start to, and like Legends start to like end and wrap themselves up. But I'm not too sure where it's going to lie. They might try and get it done sooner rather than later, just in case, but we don't know where it's going to lie. However, the future of crossovers in the Arrowverse is, I think, it's smaller crossovers between two shows, similar to the ones we got early on with Arrow and Flash. You can even argue with like Supergirl and The Flash with a musical episode, and they just do one episode, but like Supergirl goes to The Flash for an episode, or just Flash goes to Supergirl, but it's not a two-parter, it's just one episode. I can see that being how they do it going forward, just because it's probably easier. And also, you don't have to maybe like clash tones. Like Batwoman as a character wouldn't work on Legends, but then a character would work on another show. Like Stargirl would work on The Flash, but Stargirl might not work in Batwoman. You know what I mean? So just pick and choose where it works. So that's how I see the future of the crossovers, but I don't have the crystal ball. We'll have to wait and just see what they do. But yeah, that's pretty much all to talk about. If you enjoyed the video, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on this. Would you like to see them sort of revive the Green Lantern or Diggle, crossover thing for next season, potentially, especially if it's not overly done in these 5 episodes he's appearing in? Let me know your thoughts down there. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.